I'd been dating the wealthy heiress for 5 years. Just a day before we were set to get engaged, she lost her memory in a car crash. I took care of her like crazy, hoping she'd recall our shared moments. But one day, I caught her chatting with her first love. Naturally, I acted like I had amnesia too. I just didn't want to marry him. Eventually, I really gave up on her and vanished from her life completely. Then, out of nowhere, she showed up at my place in a wedding dress, crying and begging. "Hero, can you marry me again?" The second Reena Lynn opened her eyes, and I jumped up with joy. "Reena, you're awake! The doctor thought you might never wake up again." I barely dared to sleep, scared of missing any updates. When I finally saw her open her eyes, my throat went tight. I awkwardly held her hand. "How are you feeling? Any pain anywhere?" I started to speak, but she cut me off coldly. "Who are you? I don't know you." Dropping my sentence, I was stunned, unable to believe what I heard. Forcing a smile, my voice shook a bit. "Reena, don't joke around. I'm your fiancé, Hero." Reena's beautiful eyes showed doubt. She suddenly pulled her hand away, looking angry. "Don't lie to me. My fiancé is Ryu Meng." I was shocked. Ryu Meng was Reena's ex-fiancé. The Lin and Meng families were once engaged, growing up together with matching social statuses, and everyone thought they'd be together forever. But Meng went bankrupt suddenly, and the Lin family broke off the engagement, leaving things unresolved. Facing Reena's cold stare, my confused gaze landed on the ring on her middle finger. My eyes lit up. "No, Reena, look, we're already together." I grabbed her hand, the ring gleaming under the light, trying to explain, but Reena's expression grew more impatient. She slapped the ring onto the floor. "I don't care who you are. Get out now. I only want Ryu Meng." The doctor had said Reena's amnesia was from the trauma of the accident. This was the 5th time she'd kicked me out of the hospital room. Behind the door, her angry voice echoed. "Get out. I don't want to see you." Her friends in the room exchanged confused looks. It was so weird. Reena remembered everyone except me and was treating me badly. The door creaked open and Anna stepped out. "Hero, don't be mad. She has amnesia now. It's normal for her to be a bit moody. She just forgot about me." My eyes darkened and I smiled at Anna. "I get it, as long as she's okay." Anna hesitated, then softly suggested, "How about bringing Ryu Meng over? The doctor said it might help stabilize her emotions and help her recover faster." Her voice stumbled a bit, probably feeling that the suggestion was a bit harsh since I was Reena's fiancé. I didn't say anything and turned to look at Reena through the window. She was wrapped in bandages, her eyes reading, "I just want Ryu Meng." The always proud heiress sounded so sad. After a moment, I heard myself say, "All right," and walked back into the hospital room. This time, Reena was surprisingly calm. She looked me up and down and softly asked, "Hero, why would I want to marry you?" "Because we love each other, because you once loved me." I tried to respond, my fingertips turning white from clenching, but no words came out. Just then, a man walked in. Reena's eyes lit up. "Ryu, you're here." Ryu Meng arrived quickly, pushing me aside and looking at Reena tenderly. "Reena, I heard you got hurt." Reena pouted, nodding pitifully. "It hurts so much, and I still get harassed by a bad guy every day." It was clear who she meant. I swallowed my bitterness and quietly stepped aside. Ryu Meng suddenly approached me. "Did you hear that Reena doesn't want to see you? Be sensible and leave on your own." He said it matter-of-factly. I took a deep breath. "Mr. Meng, you should know that I'm her fiancé now." Before Ryu could respond, Reena looked at me with disgust and smirked contemptuously. "Let's cancel the engagement. I never acknowledged you as my fiancé." My mental strength finally broke. I stared at her blankly, wondering if she'd truly lost her memory. My body trembled as I spoke hoarsely. "Reena, please don't treat me like this. I can't stand seeing your disgust every day. At least, don't hate me so much." It was almost a humble plea, but Reena just tilted her head. Her red lips parted slightly. "No, You make me sick just by looking at you. I was kicked out again by the smug Ryu Meng. Hearing them flirt inside, I leaned against the wall, clutching my chest in a daze. My heart hurt painfully. I never thought Reena would want to cancel the engagement, not even during our toughest times. Back then, she had a fallout with her family, and I was struggling too. We squeezed into a small rented room living in poverty. The heiress who never worked a day took on a job secretly to buy me a watch I'd wanted for my birthday. It wasn't expensive, but it was a lot for us at the time. I didn't know how she found the job or saved up bit by bit. In the freezing winter, I watched her chapped, red hands and cried with heartache as she smiled softly, saying, "Because I really love you." But the Reena who loved me so much back then was gone. Today, with a cold face, she told me to cancel the engagement and that I made her sick. Reena didn't tell me when she was discharged from the hospital. I saw her social media update. "The ring Ryu specially bought. Everyone take a look. Is it pretty?" The picture showed her hand with the ring on her middle finger, strikingly prominent. Putting down my phone, I felt dazed. The image of Reena throwing away the ring a few days ago was still fresh. I didn't get why amnesia caused such a drastic change. Or maybe she never loved me at all. I shook my head quickly, not daring to think further. Reena just has amnesia. I can wait. Wait for her to remember everything little by little. Whether it takes a year, 10 years, or a lifetime. I returned to the marital home, only to find Reena unexpectedly in the living room. Seeing me, Reena's delicate face showed anger. "Hero, I can't believe you used such tactics. Have you no shame?" Suddenly being scolded out of the blue, I was stunned. I tried to calm her gently. "Reena, I don't know what you're talking about." Her eyes filled with hostility, and she threw a pillow at me. "Stop pretending. You told my parents to break me up with Ryu and trapped me here. Hero, you're disgusting." Hearing this, I immediately understood. The Lin family didn't want Reena to contact Ryu Meng. I pressed my lips together, trying to explain. "It wasn't me. I didn't say that." Before I could finish, she cut me off coldly. "Hero, if you do this, don't blame me for being rude." She slammed the door on her way out. Watching her leave, I silently clenched my fists. Reena came back, reeking of alcohol, with a tall man supporting her. It was Ryu Meng. He held Reena closely and placed her on the sofa, glancing at the porridge I'd left to cool. Ryu Meng sneered. "Reena was right. You really are a good dog." He walked up to me, eyes full of disdain. "Tonight, Reena and I will use the master bedroom. Can you give us some space?" I suddenly stood up, my anger boiling over. "You dare try that and see what happens." I rushed forward, grabbed his collar, and punched him hard. He dared to take advantage of Reena's amnesia. Ryu Meng staggered back, groaning in pain. "Hero!" The shout came not from Ryu, but from Reena on the sofa. I didn't know when she'd woken up. Struggling to stand, she trembled with anger. A sudden slap landed on my face, my cheek stinging with pain. I turned my head, disbelief covering my face. The grievance in my heart almost overflowed. Reena looked at me, hoping for a hint of pity. But there was none. She gritted her teeth, her face filled with hatred. "How dare you hit Ryu? Who gave you the right? This slap is to repay him." My throat tightened, and I couldn't say a word. She carefully helped Ryu Meng up, leaving me with one last sentence. "Hero, I really don't want to see you. Can't you just die?" They went upstairs, and for some reason I could hear their intimate noises. I sat on the sofa, dazed and heartbroken. "Reena, you will regret this," I muttered to myself. I entered the study, fighting back tears. On the desk lay a wedding dress. Reena had once said she wanted the most unique wedding dress in the world when we were about to get engaged. 2 months ago, I started designing it, hiring the best tailor, every stitch sewn by hand. My hands trembled as I touched the RL design on the dress, tears blurring my vision. We were so close to getting married. The man she once fiercely protected was me. The next morning, I went to the kitchen to make her some hangover soup. Reena often had headaches after heavy drinking, So I asked an old Chinese medicine doctor for herbs and brewed the best hangover soup for her. I waited a long time, but Reena didn't come down. I went upstairs and found her standing in the study, quietly watching the wedding dress. Her long hair covered her face. I was stunned. Did she remember something? Suppressing my excitement, I spoke gently. Reena, what's wrong? Does your head hurt? She raised her head, looking at me expressionlessly. What is this? I sighed, following her gaze to the wedding dress I designed. When we were about to get engaged, you said you wanted a unique wedding dress. As I spoke, I couldn't help but choke up. Reena, please remember. She didn't say anything, and I thought she might be moved. Suddenly, she looked at me and asked, Are you done? I was stunned. The next second, she picked up a utility knife and slashed the wedding dress. Her movements were swift and filled with hatred. By the time I reacted, the dress was destroyed beyond recognition. Only then did Reena laugh heartily. Hero, the ring is gone, and now the wedding dress is gone too. She curled her lips into a malicious smile. So that damn engagement should be canceled as well. Everything happened so suddenly. I closed my eyes, feeling inexplicably tired. Forcing a slight smile, I turned and left. Reena, you're tired too. Go back. Reena really hated me. I realized this belatedly. Outside the door, Ryu Meng was leaning against the wall. I stared at the scratch marks and kiss marks on his chest, glaringly red, proof of how intense they'd been last night. He glanced at me with pity. How pathetic. Don't long for things that don't belong to you. He seemed amused, took out his phone, and smirked. Since you're already so miserable, there's no harm in showing you. I took the phone with trembling hands. There were inappropriate photos and videos taken at some unknown time. My eyes instantly filled with anger. Ryu Meng took back his phone and chuckled provocatively. If you want, I can send you a copy. As he passed me, he whispered in my ear, By the way, your wife was amazing last night. After saying that, he pushed me aside and entered the study, leaving me standing there dumbfounded. The engagement party went on as planned. Mr. Lin approached me, pleading for me to marry Reena. If she broke off another engagement, her reputation would suffer. I was silent for a moment, then agreed. I didn't want Reena to be tarnished. To my surprise, Reena didn't react much to the engagement either. She accepted it calmly, and the engagement party was hastily arranged with the wedding dress and ring casually chosen. Standing at the wedding venue, I still felt dazed. It felt like an orderly ceremony, not a real wedding. I wondered, was this decision truly right? Reena and I weren't in the same room. The guests had all arrived, and I walked up to greet them with a smile. I should have been with Reena, but she hadn't come out yet. I thought she might not be ready. As time passed, it was time for the ceremony. Reena still hadn't appeared. Whispers spread among the crowd. Mr. and Mrs. Lin looked increasingly tense. I reassured them softly, glancing at the door occasionally, expecting Reena to come. She had never lied to me. Until the makeup artist who was dressing her rushed in. Something's wrong, Miss Lin is missing. The lively venue fell silent. The makeup artist stammered. I was halfway through doing Miss Lin's makeup when she suddenly said she needed to go to the bathroom. She didn't come back for a long time. When I went to look for her, she was gone. I could feel everyone's sympathetic eyes on me. Bitterness filled my mouth, and I forced a smile. When Reena was unwilling to see me earlier, I had a premonition. I just didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to think that Reena, who loved me so much, would do this. I wanted to protect her reputation, but she didn't care about my dignity at all. I took a deep breath, bowed to the guests, and nodded to Mrs. Lin. Let's find Reena first. I found Reena in an alley, in Ryu Meng's arms, whispering intimately. I heard Reena laugh softly, her voice charming and gentle. Ryu, we can finally be together. Ryu Meng whispered something in her ear. She suddenly buried her head in his neck, laughing foolishly. I didn't lose my memory. I just fooled that idiot hero. I just don't want to marry him. A buzzing filled my head. I stood in the corner, my body trembling. I finally understood why Reena's behavior had been so strange. I finally understood why she'd forgotten only me. It was all fake. Everything was fake. The countless excuses I'd made for her became the most fatal blow to my heart. I laughed softly. Grievance, anger, pain, all the emotions I should have felt turned into one thing. Come. I closed my eyes, my nails digging into my palms. It was time to end this. Mr. and Mrs. Lin also saw them. With Mrs. Lin's scream, Reena finally noticed me. A trace of discomfort flashed in her beautiful eyes before she replaced it with a vicious look. You saw? Perfect. Saves me from having to tell you again. Hero, I don't want to marry you. I interrupted her before she could finish, looking at her calmly. Reena, let's cancel the engagement. Reena was stunned, her eyes widening slightly, surprised that I was the one to say it first. After a moment, she smirked sarcastically, pretending to be magnanimous. Huh, trying to play that game too? Just don't come crawling back to me later. I won't. I never will again, I smiled. Mr. Lin sighed deeply, unable to continue the engagement. With it canceled, I moved out of the marital home. The traces Reena and Ryu Meng left there disgusted me. On social media, Reena often posted photos with Ryu Meng, flaunting triumphantly. Reena had always been like this. I shook my head and began tidying up my new home. While packing, I found a photo album filled with pictures from our rented apartment. I squatted down, staring at the album dazedly. Suddenly, I remembered why I liked Reena in the first place. I grew up with my grandfather. After he died in an accident, a group of people took me back to the Mu family, saying I was Mr. Mu's lost child. But I knew the truth. I was an illegitimate child, the most unwelcome existence. In a circle where everything was about interests, I was a thorn in everyone's side. When the family found out my identity, they bullied me relentlessly. I saw Reena at a party, wearing a princess dress, surrounded by admirers. She was the high and mighty princess, and I was the stray dog begging for scraps. During the party, while adults socialized, a group of kids dragged me to a corner, leaving me lying on the ground like a dead dog. They kicked me and stomped on my face with their shoes, laughing the whole time. Sometimes I thought it'd be better to die like this. After all, the only person who cared about me was gone. I slowly closed my eyes until I heard a soft, childish voice. What are you doing? Everyone stopped. Reena stood before me, looking down. I don't bully people, yet you dare to bully others in front of me. Are you challenging me? Reena's family was strong, and her words scared the kids so much they scattered. I stared at her, also a bit scared, until those beautiful, fox-like eyes looked at me. She reached out her hand. Get up, boys don't cry. Her tone was fierce, but her palm was warm and comforting. It was the first time I felt kindness from someone else. Tears rolled down my cheeks over the years Reena had probably forgotten, and I never thought we'd end up like this. Days later, there was a banquet I couldn't avoid attending. Reluctantly, I found a female companion to accompany me. Amidst the clinking of glasses, my companion held my arm intimately as we moved through the crowd. I wore a polite smile, conversing with them, when suddenly, a smash. The sound of glass shattering on the floor made me pause and look up. Reena was standing there, holding Ryu Meng's arm, staring at me dazedly. The glass had shattered at her feet. My companion gasped, and I looked away, lowering my head to comfort her softly. A shadow fell over me as Reena suddenly stood in front of me, her face pale, eyes fixed on my companion's hand holding my arm. Who is she? I frowned, finding it inexplicable. That doesn't seem to concern Miss Lin. I looked at her calmly. Miss Lin, Reena repeated softly, her eyes confused, sensing my companion's unease. I patted her shoulder to reassure her. I spoke to Reena indifferently. Miss Lin, please step back. You're scaring my companion. Only then did she sneer and glance up and down at my companion, laughing coldly. It seems your taste isn't that great now, either. After saying this, she adjusted the hem of her designer dress like a peacock showing off. I just looked at her coldly. I'll say it again. Miss Lynn, please step back. She froze, her eyes widening in disbelief. Hero, how dare you talk to me like that? My patience was exhausted. I exhaled and spoke clearly. Reena, I think you forgot how badly things ended between us. Don't appear in front of me. You better not make me hate you more. After throwing down these words, I took my companion's hand and walked away. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Reena standing there in confusion, while Ryu Meng seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The banquet continued, but Reena was nowhere to be seen. That wasn't my concern anymore. That evening, I got home and received a phone call. Hello? The background noise was loud. Then, an arrogant female voice rang out. Hey, hero, come pick me up. It was Reena. I frowned. If there's nothing else, I'm hanging up. Hero, how dare you hang up on me? Don't you dare hang up. Her voice sounded drunk and clingy as she whined. I'm drunk. My head hurts. I took a deep breath. Reena, go find Ryu Meng if you're having problems. Don't bother me. At that moment, a stranger's female voice grabbed the phone. Sorry, dude. This lady here has had too much to drink and is bothering you. Reena continued to shout on the other end. No, it's Hero. It's Hero. After some chaos, something seemed to happen. The other end suddenly quieted down. I heard Reena ask softly, Hero, do you still love me? She must have been really drunk. Hearing this, I almost laughed out loud. I spoke harshly. How could I? Just seeing you makes me sick now. The other end fell silent, and I could only hear her shallow breathing. I just felt annoyed, expressionless. I hung up the phone. I'd heard from others that Reena hadn't contacted Ryu Meng for several days. I wasn't surprised. Reena had always been like this, kicking people away when she was tired of them. Until I saw her photo on social media. She was in a room, smiling brightly. The caption read, Reconciled. I didn't understand what that meant, but the room in the background looked familiar. I frowned. It was the marital home I had listed with the real estate agent. Why did Reena buy it? Could it be to commemorate her relationship with Ryu Meng? Late that night, it was raining heavily. Suddenly, there was a soft knock on the door. I got up and opened it, seeing who it was. I was a bit surprised. It was Reena. She was drenched from the rain, her small body trembling slightly. My eyes fell on her clothes, and I was stunned. I immediately recognized the wedding dress she was wearing. It was the one I had painstakingly sewn by hand, the same one she had slashed to pieces. Now, the dress was miraculously intact again. On closer inspection, some of the stitches were clumsy, like they were sewn by a novice. Hero. Reena's voice was thick with a nasal tone, her makeup a smeared mess. The always exquisite heiress looked utterly disheveled. Hero, she called out again, meeting my expressionless face. Reena's eyes were filled with tears. I shouldn't have done those things before. Can you give me another chance? I love you so much. Hero, will you marry me again? I quietly looked at her. The Reena who had once smiled so brightly in our rented apartment overlapped with the one standing before me. Yet my heart felt nothing. Not even a trace of resentment remained. I realized then that I truly didn't love her anymore. I sighed, taking a towel from the bathroom and tossing it to her. Her eyes lit up a bit. I spoke slowly. You expect me to marry you when you want, and throw me aside when you don't. Reena, where in the world is it that easy? You should know by now. I don't love you anymore. Reena's face turned pale. She opened her mouth, trying to explain something, but I closed the door on her. Reena, we should have said goodbye a long time ago. Reena disappeared for a few days, but Ryu Meng contacted me. His voice was a bit hoarse. Hero, let's talk. At the coffee shop, I was surprised to see Ryu Meng. He looked haggard, his handsome face showing signs of exhaustion. Gone was his previously arrogant demeanor. Seeing me, he gritted his teeth. What did you do to Reena to make her break up with me? I lowered my eyes and calmly responded, You should ask Reena that and tell her to stop bothering me. He trembled with anger, and when his gaze fell behind me, he was stunned. Reena. I turned around and saw Reena standing behind me, her eyes red. Seeing me look at her, Reena bit her lip. Her once bright voice was now dim. Hero, did he bully you? I looked at her coldly and shook my head. Reena stammered, If he bullies you, you can tell me. I interrupted her. No need. I'd prefer if both of you never appeared in front of me again. Reena trembled, her eyes filled with pain. I got up to leave, and behind me, her choking voice called out, Does it mean that no matter what I do, you won't care anymore? I paused for a moment, but walked away without looking back. It was a silent answer. Because wrong is wrong, late affection is cheaper than grass. Almost every day, I received long and short messages from Reena expressing her regret and love. I tirelessly blocked all her accounts. After a period of silence, I heard news about Reena again. I didn't expect her to go this far. When I found out, she had already severed ties with her family. It wasn't just a tantrum or a quarrel. She had completely cut ties. She gave up her identity as a rich heiress and the life of luxury and wealth. I thought of the last message she sent me. If we could start over, would you forgive me? I didn't understand what she was trying to do. After leaving work, I found Reena standing at the company entrance, seeing me. She stood up straighter, looking a bit nervous. She was no longer wearing those branded clothes, just a simple white dress. Reena had never looked twice at such clothes before. I gave her a brief glance and frowned. What do you want? She lowered her head and handed me a lunchbox. Have you eaten? I made this myself. I finally understood what she was trying to do. The heiress who never lifted a finger was now cooking for me. How ridiculous. Her face was full of an ingratiating look, her eyes shining with hope. I paused, took the lunchbox from her hand, and the next second threw the bag and lunchbox into the trash can. I won't eat it. Don't come again. Instead of going home, I entered a restaurant. A friend insisted on setting me up on a blind date after my engagement was broken off. I couldn't refuse, so I agreed. When I arrived, the woman was already there. Her name was Mika, petite and cute, with round apricot eyes that curved like little crescents when she smiled. Hero, you must be Hero, right? Her voice was also very cute. I smiled and nodded. Her way of speaking was playful and interesting, and by the end of the dinner, I was in a much better mood. When we said goodbye, Mika cheerfully handed me a note. If I'm your dream girl, please light up the signal for me. I couldn't help but laugh, putting the note in my pocket. As I left the restaurant, I immediately saw Reena standing nearby. She had already seen Mika leaving earlier. Hearing footsteps, she looked up, her face still streaked with tears. I sighed and reminded her, It's late. You should go home. Reena ignored me and asked blankly, Will you get engaged to her? I frowned, wanting to say not so soon, but after thinking for a moment, yes, if nothing unexpected happens. Reena opened her mouth hesitantly. Then what about me? You can go find Ryumeng or apologize to your family? Her tears started flowing again, crying pitifully. But I only like you. I only want you. I stared at the disheveled Reena and suddenly laughed. It's disgusting to hear you say that. Let me tell you, even if I marry a dog, I would never marry you, Reena. As if all her hopes were shattered, Reena's eyes gradually dimmed. Not wanting to see her anymore, I immediately turned and left. After that, I never saw Reena again. The next time I heard about her was on the news. The broadcast's female voice was gentle. The long-missing Miss Reena from the Lin family was found dead at home this morning, suspected suicide. And I, holding my new bride, had already started a new life. Reena's side story ***. Hero likes me. I've always known from the way he looks at me. From his clumsy behavior, I've caught him stealing glances at me more than once. So obvious, so very obvious. Although I don't know why he likes me, I don't dislike him. I even enjoy his deliberate attempts to please me. After all, even though his family background isn't great, he's good-looking enough. As a woman, being courted by such a high-quality man is quite satisfying. Many men have confessed to me, almost all dressed in suits, holding roses. Cliché, boring. Only Hero, whose love letters were almost soaked with sweat from his palms. I found it funny and impulsively agreed to him. The day I agreed to Hero, he cried and laughed, spinning me around several times. He said he would never let me regret choosing him. Of course, I've never regretted anything. Hero treated me very well, better than anyone besides my parents. Oh, maybe even better than my parents. He often worked part-time jobs, saving every penny to buy me gifts. I told him I didn't need them, that I could buy a lot with my own money. Hero just said that as my boyfriend, it was his duty. He said this and then cried, feeling he had wronged me. What a fool. I thought no one could be a more qualified boyfriend than him, even though I didn't like him. After graduating from college, he said he wanted to start a business, to earn a lot of money for me to spend. I thought he was an idiot, but was a bit bored, so I played along with him. After all, I didn't like him. So I severed ties with my parents and squeezed into a tiny rented room with him. Hero was amazing. Hero was, indeed, worth it. During the hardest times, he spent all his earnings on me, never buying anything for himself. This fool. I couldn't stand his pitiful yet silent demeanor. So I got a job. The result of working was that my hands were red from the cold. My hands, which I'd taken care of for so long, were now frozen and red. I was a bit angry, but seeing Hero's teary, grateful expression didn't seem like a loss. Later, I met Ryu Meng. He cried his heart out, saying he couldn't live without me, that he truly loved me. Yes, Ryu Meng and I were meant to be together, but we were forced apart by our families. I loved Ryu Meng. From that day on, I kept seeing Ryu Meng secretly, until the day I went to see him. I got into a car accident. It was incredibly painful. When I opened my eyes again, I was met with Hero's worried face. I no longer wanted to be with Hero, but I didn't dare to say it. So, I came up with a good plan: pretend to have amnesia. There's a term in medicine called selective amnesia. I pretended to remember everyone but him. Hero looked very sad. I felt a bit guilty, but I had no choice. I wanted to be with Ryu Meng. I didn't understand why Ryu Meng didn't visit me often, but I saw Hero every day. He made soup and cooked for me, trying to make me happy. He even stayed up all night during the first few days after I woke up. The more he did this, the guiltier I felt. So I deliberately scolded him, trying to push him away. But Hero never left me. On the day of the engagement party, Ryu Meng suggested a plan. Pretend to agree to the engagement, then run away at the last minute so Hero would discover that I wasn't really amnesiac. That way, Hero would definitely stop bothering me. For some reason, hearing this made me feel a bit sad, but I agreed. I didn't want to hurt him too deeply, so I had to do it this way. Sure enough, Hero stopped bothering me. He personally said he wanted to cancel the engagement. When that moment finally came, I felt more panic than joy. I began to wonder if my decision was really the right one. I truly felt heartbroken when Hero entered the venue with another woman. Even though I knew I shouldn't, I couldn't help but question him. He said he hated me. I watched his back as he walked away, feeling lost. My heart ached so much it felt like I was dying. Breaking up with Ryu Meng didn't hurt this much. I gradually realized I might actually love Hero. Once I understood my feelings, I felt a sense of relief. I had liked Hero for a long time. I just hadn't realized it. I thought Hero, who once loved me so much, would forgive me and we could definitely go back to how things were. But no. Even though I stayed up several nights to mend the wedding dress he designed, even though I gave up my identity as an heiress wanting to start over with him from beginning to end, he never looked back at me. He said I was disgusting, that he'd rather marry a dog than marry me. I didn't understand why the Hero who loved me so much had changed. It seemed like he didn't love me anymore. I couldn't believe it until I saw him with another woman, a gentle smile on his face. That's when I realized Hero really didn't want me anymore. It was me who lost him by my own hand.